The funeral home in downtown Seattle reeked of lilies and lies. I stood between two miniature white caskets. My legs numb. Watching mourners file past like vultures in designer black. The air felt thick enough to choke on. God took them because he knew what kind of mother they had. Victoria's voice cut through the suffocating silence like a blade. My mother-in-law stepped toward the microphone without invitation. Her silver hair perfectly coiffed. Her black Chanel suit immaculate. Every head in the room turned. Some nodded. Others whispered behind gloved hands. My husband Ryan stood frozen beside me. His Armani suit pressed to perfection. His hands buried deep in his pockets. The pharmaceutical executive who commanded boardrooms with ruthless precision now couldn't even meet my eyes. A small hand slipped into mine. Zoe. My 7-year-old daughter. Squeezed my fingers 3 times. Our secret code, I love you. I squeezed back. Though my hands felt like ice. Sometimes God shows mercy in mysterious ways. Victoria continued. Her voice dripping with false compassion. These precious angels are spared from suffering. Perhaps their home wasn't suitable for innocent souls. The crowd murmured approval. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them about the 3 years of psychological warfare, every snide comment about my parenting. Every helpful criticism, delivered with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. But the words died in my throat. My parents sat in the 3rd row. Having flown in from Chicago the previous night, Dad's jaw was clenched. His investment banker instincts screaming that something didn't add up. Mom dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. Her usual composure cracking. I tried to help Maya twice a week. Victoria's voice rang like polished steel. I came to establish proper routines for little Alex and Ben. But pride prevents some mothers from admitting their inadequacies. The whispers grew louder. The house was always chaotic. She couldn't handle 3 children. Probably postpartum depression. Ryan sighed, that practiced exhale I'd learned to dread. I won't defend you. But I won't argue either. The heat of rage began to build in my chest. But fear came first. Fear always came first with Victoria. Then Zoe let go of my hand. Her patent leather Mary Janes clicked against the marble floor as she walked toward the microphone. The sound silenced every whisper. My heart hammered against my ribs. Zoe. Sweetheart. Come back, Ryan's voice cracked. But she didn't stop. She faced Victoria directly. Her small chin raised with devastating courage. Grandma was putting Daddy's sleeping pills in Alex and Ben's bottles. The words dropped like a bomb. Victoria's face went white. Ryan jerked it upright. I felt the world tilt on its axis. Victoria had been obsessed with proving I was an unfit mother since Ryan and I married 5 years ago. When the twins were born 4 months ago, her visits became a campaign of psychological torture. She needed to break me down completely to reclaim control over her son. The babies crying at night gave her the perfect weapon if they slept too deeply to wake up. It would look like I'd finally snapped under pressure. That's a lie. Victoria hissed. A child's imagination. I took pictures because Mommy always tells me to tell the truth. Even when grown-ups won't listen. Zoe said calmly. For weeks. My intuitive daughter had noticed how the babies slept too deeply on the days Victoria visited. When she saw her grandmother crushing pills from Ryan's sample case, the one he carelessly left on the kitchen counter, Zoe had grabbed my old iPhone and started documenting the evidence. She pulled out the phone from her small purse. The screen flickered to life. Even from where I stood, I recognized our kitchen. The first photo showed bottles lined up on our marble countertop. Victoria in her black suit, leaning over the island. In her hand, a prescription bottle labeled Zolpidem, clinical sample. The second showed her crushing tablets with the back of a spoon. The third captured her shaking formula in a clear bottle. White powder swirling through the milk like snow in a snow globe. The funeral home erupted. Voices rose. Chairs scraped. Someone screamed. Ryan lunged forward. His face a mask of horror and recognition. He knew exactly what those pills were. They went to sleep after that and never woke up. Zoe continued. Her voice steady as a judge delivering a verdict. Grandma said it was the right kind of sleep, and that babies who sleep through the night are healthy babies. She told me not to tell Mommy, because it would make her feel bad about not knowing how to be a good mother. Victoria found her voice. Shrill and desperate. They were just mild sedatives, a tiny amount. You can't rush to comfort children at every little cry. I was helping Maya learn proper parenting. I only wanted what was best. Dad was already on his phone. Yes. Seattle Police. We need officers at Eternal Rest Funeral Home on Pine Street immediately. We have evidence of a double homicide. The room descended into chaos. Relatives crossed themselves frantically. Someone was filming with their phone held high. A baby cried from the back row. And its mother clutched it protectively to her chest. Sirens wailed in the distance. You orchestrated this. Victoria snarled at me. Her mask finally slipping completely. You turned my own granddaughter against me. Enough. Mom. Ryan's voice was barely a whisper. His pharmaceutical knowledge making the horror crystal clear. Jesus Christ. Enough. When Seattle Police burst through the doors, I placed my hand on Zoe's shoulder. She was burning up. Solid as granite. Unbreakable. I'm here. I whispered. As handcuffs clicked around Victoria's wrists. As she screamed about order and discipline and ungrateful daughters-in-law. I watched my daughter stand tall. This 7-year-old had done what every adult in the room had failed to do. She'd spoken the truth. The investigation moved swiftly. The King County Medical Examiner's Office detected lethal levels of zolpidem, a powerful sleep aid from Ryan's clinical sample collection in 4-month-old Alex and Ben's blood during the second autopsy. The initial assessment of sudden infant death syndrome had missed the drug because it wasn't part of standard toxicology screening for infants. Zoe's photographs were time-stamped and geocoded. Her testimony was unwavering. Security footage from our home showed Victoria arriving with her key on both days. The twins had exhibited unusually deep sleep patterns. Victoria's defense attorney tried to paint her as a confused elderly woman who had accidentally overdosed the babies. But the prosecution's expert testimony was damning. The amount of zolpidem found in the twin systems was enough to kill adult patients. Let alone 4-month-old infants. The woman who'd spent decades controlling everyone around her, who'd believed her words could reshape reality, sat in a King County courtroom, facing 2 counts of premeditated murder. Life without possibility of parole. When the verdict was read, she screamed. I gave order to chaos. I brought peace to that house. I saved those children from a mother who couldn't cope. Maya was neglecting them. Even in defeat. She couldn't accept that her need for control had led her to murder her own grandchildren. Ryan filed for divorce before the trial ended. I can't look at you without seeing my own cowardice, he said. Tears streaming down his face. I chose her over you every single time. I left those clinical samples where she could access them. I gave her a key to our house. I put our children in danger because I was too weak to stand up to my own mother. I can't forgive myself. I don't expect you to either. Zoe and I moved into a small apartment in Capitol Hill, near my parents who had relocated from Chicago to help us heal. No more sprawling Bellevue mansion. No more nursery with hand-painted clouds. No more swing set in the backyard. But we had something we'd never had before: peace. Real peace. The kind you can breathe. I started speaking at conferences about domestic abuse and toxic family dynamics. I told audiences, listen to your children. They see what adults choose to ignore. Sometimes their voices are the only thing standing between innocence and evil. Zoe still visits Alex and Ben's grave every month at Lakeview Cemetery. She leaves 2 small teddy bears and a handwritten note: I love you. I wrote it all down so the whole world would know what really happened. Grandma can't hurt anyone now. Standing beside those tiny headstones, overlooking Lake Washington, I think about how a 7-year-old girl found the courage that every adult in that funeral home lacked. Her voice clear, unwavering, and absolutely fearless, had shattered a web of lies that could have destroyed countless other families. In the end, the truth didn't whisper. It roared. And it came from the smallest person in the room. Story 2. I received an invitation to go to Los Angeles to see my son and his spouse. There was nobody home. I asked, what did they do? And their neighbor came running up to me, yelling, run away before I tease too late. These are terrible people. Then he told me the startling truth. My world was destroyed by my neighbor's frantic warning. Run while you can. Your son and his wife are monsters. I said, what were they doing? My legs gave out as he told me the awful truth. And I almost passed out from shock. Everything changed because of this reality. Like fallen leaves. The Henderson contract was strewn all over my mahogany desk. After constructing Ramos Logistics for 23 years, they were now leaving. Hours ago. My coffee had gone cold, and the cream had formed an unsightly film on top. I glanced at the cancellation notice once more, hoping that the numbers would somehow alter. Then shoved my reading glasses up my nose. With quick effect, I reclined in my leather chair and felt the weight of my 67 years on my shoulders as the letter said. 22 million in annual revenue gone. Through my office shutters. The scorching desert heat drew sharp lines on the financial reports. As I estimated the damage, my jaw tightened. Maybe 4 staff would have to go. The midday stillness was sliced like a dagger by the harsh ring of the phone. It almost went to voicemail. Another customer phoning with unpleasant news was the last thing I needed. But I froze when I saw the caller ID. My kid. Milton. Our last chat was 3 years ago. 3 years have passed since he yelled at me for not believing in his aspirations as he stormed out of this very office. I kept my finger on the answer button as I gazed at the phone. Hi. Dad. Uncertain. His voice was quieter than I recalled. I waited even though I know it's partly my fault that we haven't spoken in a long time. All of a sudden, the Henderson deal appeared less significant. We'd like to welcome you over. Flossie and I. You have been missed. From the corner of my desk. Martha's picture grinned at me. I was too harsh on the boy, and too headstrong. She constantly remarked. When did you think? Perhaps we'll prepare a delicious supper on Friday. Flossie has developed into a fantastic chef. And I've been eager to show you the home. He hesitated. I must apologize to you, Dad, for the way our relationship ended. The battle rushed back. At the age of 35, Milton is requesting $50. 000 to invest in an app that has the potential to transform transportation. His expression when I encouraged him to obtain a real job instead of pursuing his dreams and I said no. You never had faith in me. He yelled. I support hard labor above gimmicks to get easy money. The windows shook from the force of the door's bang. That day, Martha's last picture had fallen off the wall. Son, I have also missed you. My remark sounded harsher than I had meant. On Friday morning, I'll make the journey. Really, I think that's fantastic. These days, we reside in Beverly Hills. I'll SMS the address to you. Beverly Hills. Apparently, the youngster had done well for himself. Perhaps I had been mistaken about him. Martha's soft voice could have been correct. I hung up and sat in quiet for a long time. As usual. Even though the Henderson contract was there in front of me, it seemed less upsetting, and somehow smaller. Every time. Family came before business. After going to my bedroom, I took out my nice suitcases. The ones Martha and I used on our anniversaries. I took the Rolex I had been putting away for a special occasion out of my jewelry box. It had always impressed Milton. The diamond earrings Martha wore on our wedding were my choice for Flossie. She would prefer that they remain in the family. If I departed early, the trip would take around 6 hours. With hands more steady than they had been all week, I neatly folded clothing into the overnight bag. Business issues may wait. This time, pride would not stand in the way of my son's reach. After decades of devoted service, I brought my things to the Cadillac. A 1.95 de ville. Although weathered, the leather seats were as cozy as an old friend. The sky was painted in vivid oranges and reds by the Arizona sun as I filled the trunk. I would see Milton again tomorrow. We would begin reconstructing what we had lost tomorrow. After I put the final bag in the trunk, I turned to face the horizon, where California was waiting on the other side of the desert. Arrived with desert clarity on Friday morning. At precisely 9. The Cadillac's engine purred with joy as I pulled out of my driveway. Phoenix. A huge monument to hopes forged in tough environments. Stretched out behind me in the rearview mirror. Like a promise. The interstates extended forward. Route 10. Over the years, West had accompanied me on several business travels. But today was different. I carried hope today, rather than duty. After adjusting the rearview mirror, I was able to see my own eyes. I felt a sense of excitement that I hadn't experienced in months. As I joined into traffic, the radio came alive. Despite the irony, I found myself singing along as Hotel California filled the cabin with eagles. As Phoenix gave way to vast desert, the air conditioner struggled against the rising temperatures. By the age of 11, I had reached the heart of Arizona, where the only signs of civilization were truck stops and petrol stations. Reaching for an impossible blue sky, the terrain continued in an unending array of beige and brown hues, interspersed with the odd Joshua tree. I was always reminded of Martha by this stretch. She said she had enjoyed these journeys and that the silence allowed her to think more clearly. With her palm resting on mine above the gear shift, she would add, "All that space gives your soul room to breathe." Unbidden, a recollection sprang to mind. We traveled to Roosevelt Lake for a camping weekend, and Milton was 12 years old and bouncing in the backseat of the same Cadillac. Martha was certain that we would starve in the forest 30 minutes from town, so she packed enough food for an army. Dead. When will I be able to drive? Leaning forward between our chairs, Milton had posed the question. When you're tall enough to avoid sitting on a phone book and reach the pedals. I had chuckled. It's unfair. Tommy is allowed to steer on their property by his father. Tommy's father is less concerned about traffic restrictions and has more acreage. He had learnt how to throw a line for me at the lake, and his little hands were firmly grasping the rod. We would pose as if we had landed Moby Dick. But Martha had taken photos of us holding up a base that was, to be honest, too little to retain. Later, as she watched us attempt to prepare supper over our pathetic campfire, she had laughed until she started crying. If your life depended on it, neither of you could ignite a fire. In between chuckles, she would gasp. I objected, saying we're acquiring vital survival skills. However, I was also giggling. Those were the good old days. Before the debates in college, before the adolescent rebellion, before the business disputes that caused us to split ways. When did everything get so complicated? I turned into a quartzite station as the petrol gauge slowly plummeted. As I walked in with perspiration on my brow despite the air conditioning, the old cashier glanced up from his newspaper. Visiting family in California, he said as he rang up my gasoline purchase. His old features wrinkled into a grin as he said, "My son. Haven't seen him in years. Families. Everything. You're acting appropriately." On sunburnt flesh. The affirmation was like cold water. My steps were lighter as I made my way back to the Cadillac. Around 2:00. The first pom-poms with agriculture inspection posts marked the California boundary. The terrain started to gradually change from desert brown to green along the shore. As I got closer to the sprawl of Los Angeles, the traffic became heavier. Travel-worn sedans and trucks are increasingly being replaced by luxury vehicles. The shiny Mercedes and BMWs that filled the lanes around me made my ancient Cadillac seem shabby all of a sudden. Phoenix money flowed in a different way than Beverly Hills money. My phone's GPS apparently led me to progressively wealthier neighborhoods. Desert landscaping was replaced with well-kept grass. Pools glistened under tall walls. Milton had learnt to ride a bike in a middle-class neighborhood in Phoenix. But this was his new world. Had I somehow held him back? Had my focus on real-world tasks rather than lofty goals constrained his potential? Perhaps this achievement showed that I had been mistaken. Perhaps the youngster I had brought up had just needed more space to develop than I could provide. Traffic in the actual Beverly Hills crawled. In my peripheral view, Rodeo Drive, a boulevard I'd only seen in movies, came and went. Despite the air conditioning, my hands became wet on the driving wheel. Instead of miles, the GPS now announces distances in hundreds of feet. Turn right on Palm Drive in a mile. My heart began to race. The end of 3 years of stillness was near. I adjusted my collar and smoothed my gray hair when I looked in the rearview mirror. The presents, wrapped in the nice paper Martha insisted on keeping for special occasions, were safely placed in the passenger seat. Turn right into Palm Drive after 500 feet. Like something out of an architectural magazine, the white modernist home came up in front of me. A mirror labyrinth of light and shadow was created by the afternoon sun reflecting from floor-to-ceiling windows. A center fountain was surrounded by a circular driveway. Rainbows appear in the spray of its water. Along the well-kept grass, palm trees stood guard. After parking the Cadillac, I sat and took it all in. For himself, Milton had done more than well. This was riches beyond my wildest expectations. Nothing that my logistics business could have supplied. For sure. As I picked up the present bags from the passenger seat, pride and intimidation weighed heavily on my chest. The entrance door had brass hardware that shone like jewels, and was made of solid wood. The bells that echoed inside, when I rang the doorbell, likely cost more than most people's vehicle payments. I could see furniture outlines, movement shadows, and the implication of luxury through the frosted glass. But I couldn't see any footfall. I smoothed my shirt and adjusted my tie as I waited. Here, the desert heat appeared different. Damp with evaporation from swimming pools and sprinkler spray. A minute later, I rapped hard on the door. Fluffy. Milton. My words reverberated over the silent street. Dad is here. Silence responded. I looked at my watch. I held the bell longer the second time I rung it. Empty chambers listened to the melody's costly tune. From its perch near the entryway, a security camera monitored my movements. Red light continuously flickered, capturing my increasing bewilderment. I felt stupid as I clumsily waved at it. Hi. Is anybody at home? The silence went on and on. There would be no voices calling. No cooking sounds. And no television noises. Only the soft spray of the fountain and the distant murmur of wealthy neighborhood life. Gift bags became heavy in my perspiring palms as I strolled around the outside of the home. The outdoor kitchen was shining dormant behind its canvas cover. And the backyard was a haven of patio furniture and a pool. I caught a peek of a living room that looked like it might have been in a five-star hotel lobby via sliding glass doors. Everything was flawless, costly, and meaningless. The rear door was securely secured. I went back to the front and, with shaky fingers, dialed Milton's number on my phone. Before going to voicemail, it rang 4 times. Milton Ramos has been reached. Please leave a message, and I will respond. It's Dad. Milton. I made an effort not to sound worried. I arrived at your residence as scheduled. You're where? Give me a call back. Next. Even though I didn't really know Flossie, I tried her number. Over the years, we may have had 3 Christmas calls together. Hello. I'm Flossie. I'll give you a call back shortly. But I'm unable to answer the phone at the moment. This is Samuel. Flossie. I'm having supper here. Give me a call back. Please. With the exception of gardeners working across the street. The street was dead silent. The only indications of life in this idyllic neighborhood came from their leaf blowers. I was given a long look by the driver of a security patrol car as it slowly drove by, making me feel like an intruder. I placed the gift bags next to me and took a seat on the front steps. My pants felt warm on the concrete. But the portico's shade helped a little. There must have been a miscommunication. Traffic jams. A workplace emergency. Etc. People didn't just show up at their arranged father's doorsteps after inviting them to dinner. Did they? My phone was obstinately silent. No phone calls or texts apologizing for the wait. The happy splash of the fountain turned to derision. 4:00 rolled around. My shade vanished as the sun moved, exposing me like an unwanted piece of furniture on the steps. Despite the California breeze, my shirt was soaked with sweat. The strange concrete made my leather shoes feel constricting and uncomfortable. Similar indications of costly emptiness were seen in other homes on the block. I had never felt more out of place. Sitting on stairs that likely cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Surrounded by immaculate driveways, closed gates, and the strange stillness of affluence that shields itself from the outside world. I could have misinterpreted. Perhaps Milton didn't mean this Friday. But next Friday. Perhaps I heard what I wanted to hear rather than what he had said since I was so desperate to make amends. However, Flossie had seemed enthusiastic about the dinner arrangements. And he had made special reference to this Friday. My heart started to sag towards well-known ground. I was disappointed in the same way that Milton had missed my 60th birthday. He felt the same emptiness from missing Martha's burial. Patterns that keep happening in spite of optimistic assurances. My knees ached from the prolonged sitting. So I got up cautiously. The present bags were suddenly heavier. And they waited foolishly hopeful. Perhaps it was time to acknowledge that certain bridges would never be able to be repaired. The void left by those 3 years of stillness was too great for phone calls to penetrate. As reliable as ever. The Cadillac waited patiently in the driveway. If I pushed myself, I could drive home tonight and be back in Phoenix by midnight, where I would be familiar with the norms and standards and my own difficulties. I was grabbing for my vehicle keys when I heard footsteps running toward me. Wait. Don't go in there. The voice emerged from behind a well-groomed hedge. I turned around, almost dropping the present bags as a slender guy appeared with an electric hedge trimmer. His gray hair was untidy. Heavy spectacles slipping down his perspiration-soaked nose. Excuse me, I braced myself against the Cadillac's hot metal. I suppose you're confused. He looked uncomfortably toward Milton's home. Then back at me. Sir? You need to go immediately. Those folks are hazardous. The guy seemed to be in his early 50s, wearing a soiled polo shirt and filthy gardening gloves. His tense energy made my skin crawl. But not as much as his words. This is my son's house. I responded firmly. I think you've made a mistake. His face grew pale. Your son? Oh. No. You're the father. They stated. Ice rushed down my spine despite the California heat. What are you talking about? Who mentioned me? He laid down the hedge trimmer and went closer, reducing his voice to an intense whisper. Your son and his wife. They murdered her father. Poisoned him. That's impossible. The words came out louder than I meant. You must be wrong. $5 million in inheritance. He died immediately after seeing them. Exactly as you're doing now. My legs felt wobbly. This is absurd. My son would never. He was healthy as a horse when he got here for supper. A week later. As dead. As he spoke, the man's fingers trembled. He gestured to the home next door and said, I'm Larry. By the way, I live right there. I've been watching this place since it happened. People die of natural causes all the time. I said. To my own ears. However, my voice sounded feeble. You don't throw up on someone's driveway for natural reasons. Larry's gaze quickly shifted to Milton's home's security cameras. Before he even made it to his vehicle, the neighbors saw him go, pale as a corpse and vomiting up. With a gentle thump, the present bag fell from my perspiring hands onto the heated pavement. In the strong afternoon sun, the pricey wrapping paper crinkled and looked immediately silly. Are you implying that my kid is a killer? My lips felt strange as I said those words. Get out of here, before you become the next victim. I'm telling you. Evidently afraid about being overheard. Larry retreated towards his hedge. The flossy lady. She exudes a certain coldness. And since he married her, your boy has changed. My ribs were pounded by my heart. Suddenly, the significance of 3 years of alienation seemed more sinister. What if Milton had been different? What if he had reached an unimaginable point as a result of the financial difficulties I had failed to assist him with about the inheritance? But how, I asked myself. People converse in the little neighborhood. Her father, a healthy 70-year-old who played golf twice a week, was wealthy and lived alone in Pasadena. Larry's tone became much softer. After having supper with his new son-in-law and daughter, he died a few days later. My business brain, which had used thorough risk assessment to build a profitable firm, began to catalog information. Wealthy. An elder father. A recent marriage. And a tragic death during a visit from relatives. This was my son Milton. But the pattern made awful sense. The youngster I taught to fish, who had brought home a stray dog because he seemed lonely, and who had sobbed when his goldfish died. I have to warn you because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. Larry said. But I've said all I have to say. That's all I can do. He snatched up his hedge trimmer and began to retreat towards his own land while glaring frightfully at the cameras that were recording our exchange. Hold on. I phoned for him. How about the police? How about them? Wealthy individuals pass away. It occurs often. Without proof. There can be no inquiry. At his gate? He stopped. Simply put. Refuse to eat or drink, whatever they give you. Additionally, don't spend the night. I was filled with uneasy questions as I saw Larry go behind his hedge. Underfoot. The driveway felt like a furnace, with my thoughts outpacing my heart. I walked back and forth next to the Cadillac. Larry must have been mistaken. Insane. Sexist. Or harboring resentment against Milton and Flossie. My kid was not a murderer. The youngster who had sobbed over roadkill couldn't kill someone else for cash. Could he? I gathered up the present bags that had dropped. Now they're mockingly bright. Brilliant. And happy. The Rolex inside had been intended as a peace sacrifice. A symbol of the father and son's restored confidence. It now seemed to be proof of my own ignorance. 3 years. After our argument about money, we were silent for 3 years. What had become of Milton during that period? Who was he now? I was struck with a fresh sense of importance as I remembered our most recent dispute. He was desperate when he requested $50. Ling ling ling. Dad. I need this investment. It is essential to my future. The crazed expression on his face when I had declined. You'll come to regret not having faith in me. I wrote it off at the time, as the outburst of a pampered grown-up who had never understood the need of hard labor. The weight of those words had changed. Maybe not a prediction, but a menace. Taking out my phone, I tried Milton's number once again. Directly to voicemail. The mailbox is currently full. After a continuous ringing, Flossie's phone clicked to the same upbeat audio I had heard an hour earlier. They were where? Why weren't they picking up the phone if this was a real dinner invitation? Why had I been sitting here for more than 2 hours? Before me, the mansion loomed. Its white modernist facade is now menacing and fortress-like rather than impressive. My every step appeared to be monitored by the security cameras. The flickering red LEDs resemble mechanical eyeballs. How many individuals had their last moments captured on those cameras? I heard Martha's voice again. Samuel. You're too harsh on the youngster. Milton lacks your patience. But he has your ambition. Take cautious, not to push him away too much. Had I pushed him in this direction, had the desperation that resulted in murder been sparked by my severe criticism and failure to encourage his dreams, but it was crazy. Particularly not their own relatives. People did not murder for financial gain. However, they did. There were many similar tales in the news. Insurance policies, and inheritance disputes. Inexplicable circumstances led to the death of elderly parents. Leaning against the warm metal, I placed the present bags on the Cadillac's hood. I was hardly aware of the midday sun's harsh beating. My mind was too noisy and disorganized. Milton and Flossie had summoned me here to murder me. If Larry was speaking the truth. The phone call from the devoted son, who said how much he missed me and wanted to make up for all the falsehoods. A show meant to get me within striking reach. But whether Larry was telling the truth or not, I was squandering my one opportunity to mend my connection with my kid by standing here like a paranoid idiot. $5 million. Larry had said so. Flossie's father left her inheritance. Enough cash to purchase this home, support Milton's way of life, and solve all of his financial issues. My phone chimed. And I had enough money to murder. A text message. When I realized it was from my Phoenix-based business colleague inquiring about the Henderson account, my heart jumped. My everyday existence, the outer world, looked so far away today. When I looked at the clock, it was nearly 5:30. The homes of Beverly Hills were bathed in golden light as the sun started to set towards the Pacific. Like everything else in this neighborhood, it is both beautiful and lethal. In the distance, a vehicle engine buzzed louder and louder. My heartbeat accelerated. Someone was walking down the street. And only locals or their visitors could be in such a prestigious neighborhood. The purr of German engineering replaced the rumbling of my aging Cadillac as the engine sound became more clear, costly, and smooth. I could have had 30 seconds to make up my mind. Jump into my vehicle. And go. Demonstrating that I didn't trust my own kid. Or to wait for Milton to come. Smile. And give him a hug. Perhaps signing my own death sentence in the process. I had to choose between running for my life and grinning and hugging my kid as a silver BMW pulled into the driveway. For what seemed like a lifetime, the BMW's engine hushed to a halt behind my dusty Cadillac, and the tinted windows obscured the passengers. My heart pounded against my ribs as I pushed my face into what I believed was a relieved grin. The first door to open was the driver's. Milton came out wearing clothing I had never seen him buy. Leather shoes, silk shirts, and fitted pants that most likely cost more than my monthly auto insurance premium. He didn't resemble the poor guy who had contacted me 3 years before pleading for money. Instead, he seemed affluent and robust. He strode towards me with extended arms and said, "Dad," with genuine affection in his voice. "I'm so sorry. We kept you waiting." The traffic on the way back from downtown was terrible. Murder was a word that struck me hard. Careless word choice, or deliberate malice. He went on to say, "We had some legal business to wrap up," drawing me into a hug that was both familiar and unfamiliar. Boring stuff. But these attorneys are like that. Wills, legal matters, and maybe estate planning. I hugged him back while my brain jotted down every detail for further review. When the passenger door opened, Flossie emerged like a magazine model. Flawlessly maintained blonde hair, a figure-hugging, couture outfit, and a purse that was more expensive than some people's rent each month. She walked with the polished elegance of someone used to being seen and appreciated. With her arms outstretched and a grin that could light up the whole neighborhood, she walked towards Samuel. "Your pictures don't do you justice." Milton showed me a ton of photos from his childhood. An hour before, she would have appeared pleasant if she had touched my arm while she was speaking. My skin crawled at this point. I looked for traces of remorse and performance flaws on her face. But all I saw was warmth and excitement. She went on, "I hope you brought an appetite. I spent the whole afternoon in the kitchen. Your favorites." Milton let me in on your fondness for Martha's dinner rolls and pot roast. She was aware of Martha's dinner rolls. But how I had no idea how many family recollections Milton must have shared. It seemed like a violation to be intimate with that knowledge. It was not a tough drive. Was it? Milton inquired, looking at my worn-out appearance with what seemed to be sincere concern. Particularly in this heat. 6 hours is a long journey, I managed. My voice sounded odd to my own ears. Not too horrible. The Cadillac manages it well. She's a classic, Milton said, apparently appreciating the car's worn paint. "Do you recall teaching me to drive in this old girl? I was afraid I might itch her." It was a nice, pure, and genuine recollection. It belonged to a time before suspicions, charges, and the horrifying thought that my kid had turned into a murderous stranger. My hands shook a little when I lifted the present bags from the car's bonnet. "I brought a few little tokens for you both. You didn't need to do that." "Dad?" Milton's eyes glowed with what seemed to be genuine joy. "Is your presence a sufficient gift, like a happy kid?" Flossie clasped her hands together. "How charming." "Oh. Let's get you inside where it's cool first. However, I've had iced tea ready. And you seem hot." Tea with ice. The heat and tension were drying out my throat. But I kept thinking of Larry's warning. Nothing they give you should be eaten or drunk. As we made our way to the front door, they stood on each side of me. Despite my objections, Milton was carrying one of my suitcases, Flossie talking about their improvements, and the neighborhood. The cherished family member is welcomed by the ideal host and hostess. An automated buzzer signaled the opening of the front door. "Maintain entry." I saw a costly security system that could either keep people in or keep them out. My breath was taken away by the inside. Crystal chandeliers glistened on marble flooring. Expensive furniture placed with museum accuracy. There was unique, pricey art on the walls. Money was mentioned on every surface. A lot of money. The sort that changed people's lives in an instant. With evident delight, Milton gave me the tour like a real estate salesperson and stated, "We've done some updating since we moved in. The kitchen was entirely remodeled and gutted. Flossie's notions regarding cooking areas are highly precise. And she has certain demands when it comes to food preparation that call for control and solitude." "It's gorgeous," I remarked. "To be honest, both of you have done really well for yourselves. With certain investments. We've been fortunate," Milton said. However, his tone gave the impression that the discussion was over. "Let me show you the living room. Please." The canyon vista is breathtaking. With upbeat, friendly voices, and easy, certain gestures. They guided me more into their kingdom. This act, if there was one, was executed perfectly. Larry was a neurotic neighbor with too much time and too little common sense. If it was real, however, the pricey house seemed more like a lovely trap than a home, as I followed them to the kitchen. Additionally, I kept having the impression that I was approaching the kitchen, where Martha would hump while she prepared our family meals. Suspicious and thirsty, I made my way to the kitchen while Flossie hummed softly over the stove, like a specter from happier times. The same song Martha used to accompany her melody followed me into the shining kitchen. With her back to the professional-grade cooker, Flossie stirred something that had a strong garlic and herb scent. My heart was wrenched by the song she sang. My possible murderer is currently singing my deceased wife's favorite song, I said. Just getting some water. And opened what seemed to be the apparent glass cabinet. Expensive artifacts that belonged in a museum, rather than a kitchen. Crystal stemware caught the light. This place screamed money. The kind of unexpected fortune that made people wonder. Without looking back, Flossie said, "Samuel, glasses are in the upper cabinet. Located them. Thank you." The cupboard door opened wider than I had anticipated as my hand went for a plain water glass. I saw a little brown bottle underneath the cleaning materials. Decades of risk assessment have sharpened my commercial instincts. It was marked as incorrect right away. Dish soap and window cleaner didn't require pharmaceutical containers. I glanced at Flossie, still busy at the stove, humming Martha's song like a mockery of family memories. The bottle felt cold in my palm. The label faced me clearly, as if fate wanted me to read every word. Potassium cyanide handled with extreme care. Warning symbols covered half the space. A skull and crossbones grinned up at me like death's business card. Time paused. Larry had been correct. They really were trying to kill me. My hands shook, nearly dropping the evidence. Every thriller movie I'd ever seen, every news story about family murders suddenly became real and personal. This wasn't fiction or distant tragedy. This was my son planning to poison his own father. How much did it take? A few drops. A teaspoon. The label warned of extreme danger, which meant even small amounts could be fatal. My businessman's mind calculated while my father's heart broke into pieces. The cooking sounds continued behind me. Flossie. Chopping. Stirring. Completely unaware that I'd found her murder weapon. She probably thought herself clever, hiding it behind everyday items where no one would look. But I had looked. And now I knew. I forced my trembling hands to replace the bottle exactly where I'd found it, positioning it behind the same cleaning products. The cabinet closed with a soft click that sounded thunderous to my ears. Every movement had to appear natural, casual. The actions of a thirsty father-in-law helping himself to water. The tap ran cold water into my glass, while my mind raced through implications. $5 million in inheritance. Money. A house worth millions. A lifestyle neither Milton nor Flossie could afford through legitimate means. The pattern was clear now. They'd killed before. And I was next on their list. How's the water? Samuel Flossie's voice carried false concern. Perfect. Thank you. I turned from the sink, glass in hand, watching her move around the kitchen with new eyes. Every gesture now seemed calculated. Every smile hid murder. She'd killed her own father. And now she was helping my son plan my death. The irony burned. She was humming Martha's favorite song, while preparing to send me to join my wife in the grave. But knowledge was power. They thought I was an unsuspecting victim. A lonely old man desperate for family reconciliation. They had no idea their plan was already discovered. Their weapon identified. Their intentions exposed. I took a long drink of water, buying time to think. How many people had stood in this same kitchen trusting these same smiles only to die within hours? How many family dinners had become execution chambers? That beloved melody turned sinister by its new singer. The humming went on, and I turned from the wash basin with my water glass, knowing that everything Flossie was preparing, including our family dinner, was now potentially deadly. The living room felt different now. like a theater stage where everyone played a part except me. Milton looked up from his magazine as I returned. His smile. The same one I'd taught him to use on customers when he was 12. Found what you needed. Dad, yes. Thank you. Beautiful kitchen. The words came out steadier than I felt. You've both created something special here. I chose the leather armchair with a clear sightline to the kitchen doorway. Milton didn't question my positioning. Too focused on playing the perfect host. From here, I could observe Flossie's movements while maintaining conversation. Tell me about this LA real estate market, I said, needing Milton's attention directed away from my surveillance. Seems like you've done well for yourselves. We've been lucky with some investments. Milton replied. The same vague explanation from earlier. The key is knowing when to take risks. Through the doorway, Flossie moved between counter and stove with practiced efficiency. Multiple wine bottles sat opened on the marble island. Expensive reds that would have impressed me an hour ago. Now they look like props in an elaborate murder scene. Samuel. Do you prefer red or white? She called from the kitchen. Whatever you recommend. I replied, watching her select a bottle of Cabernet. That probably costs more than most people spent on groceries. Milton launched into a discussion of California wine regions while I maintained appropriate responses. But my attention stayed locked on the kitchen, where Flossie poured 3 glasses of deep red wine. She set 2 glasses aside, near the window. The third remained by the stove. My heart hammered against my ribs as she glanced toward the living room. Checking our positions. Milton was deep in his wine expertise monologue. Gesturing with his hands completely unaware, his wife was preparing to commit murder. Flossie reached into the lower cabinet. The same one where I'd found the poison bottle. Time dilated as she retrieved the small brown container. Her movements were quick but careful. Practiced. This wasn't her first time. She'd done this before. Probably in this same kitchen. Maybe to her own father. Clear liquid dripped into the wine glass closest to the stove. 1 drop. 2. 3. A gentle swirl mixed the poison with the Cabernet, creating what looked like an innocent glass of expensive wine. The bottle disappeared back into its hiding place among the cleaning supplies. The Napa Valley producers really understand terroir, Milton was saying, his voice seeming to come from underwater. That's what separates good wine from great wine. Great wine mixed with deadly poison. I thought, watching Flossie arrange the glasses on an elegant serving tray. The poisoned glass held its position. I memorized exactly which one she doctored. She was humming again. Martha's song. The same melody my wife used to sing while cooking Sunday dinners for our small family. Now it accompanied preparation for my execution. Gentlemen. Dinner is served. Flossie's voice carried theatrical warmth as she emerged from the kitchen carrying the tray of wine. Milton jumped up with enthusiasm. Finally. I'm starving. I rose more slowly, cataloging the positions of everything that mattered. The poisoned glass sat on the right side of the tray, closest to where Flossie's hand gripped the handles. She knew exactly which one would be mine. This has been too long in coming. Milton set his arm around my shoulders as we walked toward the dining room. Family should stick together. Family. The word tasted bitter now. My son was leading me to dinner like a lamb to slaughter. His voice full of warmth while his wife carried liquid death in crystal stemware. The dining room table gleamed under chandelier light set with china that belonged in palaces. 3 play settings waited for us. Perfect in their symmetry. Beautiful and deadly, like everything else in this house. As we approached the dining table, set with fine china that reflected the chandelier light, Flossie placed the tray of wine glasses at the center, including the one meant to be my last drink. Candles flickered across polished mahogany as Flossie directed our seating like a conductor orchestrating the symphony of death. The dining room belonged in architectural magazines. Crystal chandelier casting rainbows through wine glasses. Each piece of china worth more than my employees' weekly salaries. Samuel. You sit here at the head. She gestured toward the chair furthest from any exit. Place of honor for our special guest. Milton took his position to my right. Flossie to my left. They flanked me perfectly, cutting off escape routes while maintaining the illusion of family intimacy. The choreography felt rehearsed. Let's toast to family reunions, Milton said. lifting his wine glass with theatrical enthusiasm. Flossie raised hers in perfect synchronization to healing old wounds and new beginnings. My glass sat with an easy reach, the candle light making the poison Cabernet look like liquid rubies. Beautiful and lethal. I could smell the wine's rich aroma from where I sat. No trace of the poison that would kill me within minutes of consumption. I appreciate the gesture. I began, my voice steadier than my pulse. But I've stopped drinking alcohol. Milton's expression shifted. Surprise. Replacing expectation. Since when you used to enjoy wine with dinner? Doctor. Is orders. Blood pressure medication doesn't mix well with alcohol. The lie came easily. Believable for a man my age, dealing with stress and health concerns. Flossie's smile faltered for just a microcond. But I caught it. The tiny crack in her performance revealed frustration beneath the hostess facade. Of course. Health comes first. Milton recovered quickly. But his glance toward Flossie carried meaning. They'd rehearsed this scenario. Prepared for obstacles. Flossie makes incredible fresh juice. He continued. His voice carrying forced enthusiasm. Apple cranberry blend. You'll love it. The wink he gave his wife might have seemed playful to an unsuspecting observer. To me, it confirmed they'd moved to Plan B. Whatever waited in that kitchen blender would be just as deadly as the wine I'd refused. I'll get some immediately, Flossie said, rising with renewed energy. Her disappointment had transformed into determination. While she busied herself in the kitchen, Milton filled the silence with nervous chatter about Los Angeles lifestyle and business opportunities. His pace had increased, words tumbling together as he checked his watch repeatedly. We have exciting plans for tomorrow, he mentioned, and then caught himself. I mean, we hope you'll consider staying longer. Maybe see more of the city. Plans that assumed I wouldn't survive the night. The blender word from the kitchen running longer than necessary for simple juice preparation. I engaged Milton in questions about house renovations while listening to every sound. Refrigerator opening multiple times. Glasses clinking. Liquid pouring. The preparation process seemed unnecessarily complex. This is our signature blend, Flossie announced, returning with an elegant glass pitcher filled with dark red juice. Ice cubes floated alongside orange and cranberry garnish. Professional presentation, masking murder. Samuel, you must try this. She poured a generous glass. Her movements precise and practiced. Both of them watched my reaction with intensity that felt oppressive. Their eyes tracked my every gesture, waiting for me to lift the glass to my lips. It looks delicious, I said carefully. But I'm quite full from the water. Maybe with dessert. I don't want to spoil my appetite for this beautiful meal. Milton's insistence came immediately. Come on, Dad? Just a small sip. Flossie worked so hard on it. The pressure escalated with each refusal. Their desperation began showing through cracks in their performance. Milton's voice pitched higher. Flossie's hands tense as she hovered near my chair. Please. Samuel. Flossie's tone carried pleading undertones. Just a taste for me. Her positioning felt predatory. Ready to react if I continued resisting their hospitality. They'd invested too much in this evening to let me leave without consuming their poison. I pushed back from the table with what I hoped looked like satisfied contentment rather than strategic retreat. Excuse me. I need to use the restroom before we continue this wonderful evening. As I stood, I saw Milton and Flossie exchange a look that confirmed what I already knew. They had no intention of letting me leave this house alive. The hallway stretched before me like a lifeline. Family photos lined the walls. Milton's graduation. Wedding pictures. Vacations to Europe. Images of happiness built on blood money. Now each step toward the bathroom felt measured. Calculated. Too fast would signal panic. Too slow might test their patience. Just need to freshen up before dessert. I called back my voice carrying the right note of elderly politeness. The bathroom door closed behind me with a soft click. I turned the lock. The sound unnaturally loud in the small space. For the first time in hours, I was alone with my knowledge and my terror. My phone emerged from my pocket with trembling hands. Full signal strength. Thank goodness. I dialed 911, with the volume turned to its lowest setting. Pressing the device close to my ear, And I know one. What's your emergency? My name is Samuel Ramos. I whispered. My son and daughter-in-law are trying to poison me. Sir. Can you speak louder? Are you in immediate danger? Yes. But I must whisper. I'm hiding in their bathroom. They've poisoned my drinks twice tonight with potassium cyanide. The dispatcher's tone sharpened immediately. What's your location? I provided the Beverly Hills address. My voice barely audible above the sound of my own heartbeat. Through the door, I could hear Milton and Flossie talking in normal tones. Probably discussing my bathroom break and their next move. I found the poison bottle in their kitchen. I continued. I watched her put it in my wine and juice. They killed her father the same way last year for inheritance money. Sir. Stay on the line. Officers are being dispatched. Are there weapons in the house? I don't know about guns. But the poison is enough. They think I'm just using the facilities. How many people are in the house with you too? My son Milton and his wife Flossie. They're waiting for me to return, so they can try again. The dispatcher's professional calm studied my nerves. Officers will be there in approximately 20 minutes. Can you stay safe that long? 20 minutes? An eternity when you're performing for your life. I'll need to go back and act normal or they'll suspect something. The poison drinks are still on the dining table. The cyanide bottle is under the kitchen sink behind cleaning supplies. Don't touch anything else. Let the officers collect evidence. Keep your phone accessible. But not obvious. I flushed the toilet and ran water in the sink, creating authentic bathroom sounds. In the mirror, my reflection looked older than my 67 years. But my eyes held determination I hadn't felt since Martha's death. What if they tried to force me to drink something? Refuse everything. Create any excuse. Help is coming. Mr. Ramos. I understand. I'm going back now. The connection ended. I slipped the phone into my pocket, took a deep breath, and prepared to perform the role of my life. The unsuspecting father. Grateful for family reconciliation. Unaware that dessert would be my last meal. Milton's voice carried through the door. Dad. You okay in there? Dessert's ready. Coming right out. I opened the bathroom door and walked back toward the dining room, knowing that in less than 20 minutes, this house of lies would be filled with police officers, and my son's life would be over forever. The dining room felt like a stage where I performed my final act. Flossie had arranged an elaborate apple pie, steam rising from golden crust that would have looked appetizing hours ago. Now it represented another potential murder weapon. Samuel. I made this especially for you, she announced. Knife poised over the dessert. Your favorite. Milton told me. It looks absolutely wonderful. I managed, checking my watch discreetly. 15 more minutes. But I'm quite full from that delicious dinner. Let me digest first. Milton's enthusiasm felt forced. Come on. Dad. Just a small piece. Flossie spent all afternoon on it. I deflected with practice these. Tell me about your neighborhood first. I saw some beautiful homes driving in. The real estate market here must be incredible. The conversation bought precious time. But I could see frustration building behind their smiles. Milton checked his phone repeatedly. Flossie's grip on the serving knife tightened with each passing minute. Then salvation arrived in the form of car doors slamming outside. Milton frowned toward the front window. That's strange. Sounds like a lot of cars. Heavy footsteps crossed the walkway. The doorbell rang, followed immediately by authoritative knocking that made the expensive front door rattle. I'll get that, Milton said. Confusion replacing his dinner party charm. Flossie followed him toward the entrance while I remained seated, my heart pounding with relief and anticipation. Lapped. We received a call about a possible poisoning incident at this address. Milton's voice cracked with shock. Poisoning. There must be some mistake. Officer. I stood up and walked toward the foyer where 3 uniformed officers filled the doorway. Their presence transformed the elegant entrance into a crime scene. Officers. I'm Samuel Ramos. I made that call. The color drained from Flossie's face like water from a broken glass. Milton's confusion shifted to horror as understanding dawned. Dad. What did you do? I called for help when I discovered you were trying to murder me, I replied, my voice steadier than it had been all evening. The lead officer stepped forward. Mr. Ramos. Where are the items you mentioned? I gestured toward the dining room. The poisoned wine and juice glasses are on the table. The potassium cyanide bottle is in the kitchen under the sink behind cleaning supplies. Milton's desperate denials filled the air. This is insane. We would never hurt my father. He's confused. Possibly having some kind of episode. But Flossie remained silent. Her calculating mind already working on damage control. Her silence spoke louder than Milton's protests. 2 officers moved toward the dining room while a third headed for the kitchen. Within minutes, they were photographing evidence and carefully bagging the poisoned beverages I'd refused to consume. The cyanide bottle is exactly where he described. Called the kitchen officer. Milton's face went white as the implications hit him. The evidence was undeniable. Physical. Damning. Sir. You're under arrest for attempted murder. The lead officer announced. Producing handcuffs. Dad. Please. Milton's voice broke as the cuffs clicked around his wrists. Tell them, this is all a mistake. I met his eyes for what I knew would be the last time. You stopped being my son when you decided to murder me for money. Flossie's arrest proceeded with professional efficiency. She offered no resistance. No, please. Just cold calculation of her odds. As they read her rights. I saw only hatred in her eyes when she looked at me. Larry appeared from his house next door. Drawn by the police cars and flashing lights. I warned him earlier about these 2. He told the officers. Something was very wrong here. Thank you. I said to Larry as Milton and Flossie were loaded into separate patrol cars. You saved my life. The neighbors had gathered on the street. Drawn by the spectacle of wealth and privilege crumbling under police lights. The house that had seemed so impressive hours earlier now looked like what it truly was. A monument to murder. Funded by blood money. As the police cars pulled away with my son and his wife in custody, I stood in the driveway where I'd arrived with such hope. Just hours earlier. Knowing that justice was only beginning. And the hardest part. Living with the truth about my family. Still lay ahead. The months between June and September passed in a blur of legal meetings. Evidence reviews. And sleepless nights. I sold my logistics company to cover legal expenses. And the emotional toll of testifying against my own son. The Phoenix house held too many memories of the family I thought I'd known. So, I rented a small apartment in Los Angeles to be available for the prosecution. Media attention followed everywhere. Phoenix businessman survives son's murder plot. Larry remained my anchor to sanity. Visiting regularly and reminding me that survival sometimes requires impossible choices. September 15th arrived with California sunshine streaming through the Superior Court windows. The courtroom's wood paneling and formal atmosphere couldn't diminish the surreal nature of watching my son and daughter-in-law unfolded with methodical precision. The poison bottle exhibited to the jury with its clear warning labels. Laboratory analysis confirming cyanide in both wine and juice glasses. Financial records showing Flossie's convenient inheritance and subsequent spending spree. Larry testified about his warnings and suspicions. His nervous energy on the witness stand reminded me of that when he'd rushed from behind his hedge to save my life. Then came my turn. Mr. Ramos? Please tell the court what happened on the evening of June 20th. I recounted the discovery in the kitchen cabinet, watching Flossie poison my drinks. The desperate bathroom phone call. The jury listened with rapt attention as I described performing for my life while my would-be killers served dinner. The defense attorney tried to portray me as a confused elderly man. Perhaps suffering from paranoid delusions. But my business background and clear recollection of events undermined their strategy. Mr. Ramos. The prosecutor asked. Are you certain about what you witnessed? I saw her add poison to my drink with my own eyes. My son invited me to dinner to kill me for my money. The words hung in the courtroom air like an indictment of everything family should represent. Expert testimony followed on cyanide's lethality and proper storage protocols. Financial forensics revealed the inheritance money timeline. Most damning investigators had reopened the case of Flossie's father's death, finding suspicious similarities. The defense's desperation showed in their closing arguments, grasping at explanations for household poison storage and misunderstood dinner preparations. But the evidence was overwhelming. Undeniable. Deadly. 6 hours of jury deliberation over 2 days felt like an eternity. When they returned, the foreman's solemn expression told the story before he spoke. We find the defendants guilty on all charges. Relief and heartbreak collided in my chest. Justice had been served. But the cost was everything I believed about family. The judge's sentencing was swift and final. Milton received life imprisonment without parole for attempted murder and conspiracy. Flossie got life for her father's murder and the attempt on mine. The $5 million inheritance was ordered, returned to her father's estate. As they led Milton away in shackles, he made one final desperate appeal. Dad, I never meant for it to go this far. You stopped being my son when you chose money over love. I replied, the words cutting through years of false hope and willful blindness. Flossie maintained her cold silence to the end, showing no remorse, no recognition of the lives destroyed by her greed. I walked down the courthouse steps into California's sunshine, feeling simultaneously empty and free. The drive back to Phoenix represented more than geographical transition. It was a journey toward whatever remained of my life. The desert landscape looked different now. Cleaner somehow. As if the truth had burned away illusions like morning fog. Larry had helped me pack, promising to visit once I settled back home. I used part of the recovered inheritance money to establish a scholarship fund for students studying business ethics. Martha would have approved of turning blood money into something constructive. Sitting in my Phoenix living room, months later, surrounded by photos that now told a different story, I understood that survival isn't just about avoiding death. It's about rebuilding life after trust dies. Justice was served. But the cost was everything I thought I knew about family. I learned that sometimes the greatest betrayal comes from those we love most. And the greatest strength comes from surviving it. And as this story quietly slips away into the shadows of your mind, dissolving into the silent spaces where memory and mystery entwine, understand that this was never just a story. It was an awakening. A raw pulse of human truth wrapped in whispered secrets and veiled emotions. Every word, a shard of fractured reality. Every sentence, a bridge between worlds seen and unseen. Between the light of revelation and the dark abyss of what remains unsaid. It is here in this hidden space that stories breathe their most potent magic, stirring the deepest chambers of your soul, provoking the unspoken fears, the buried desires and the fragile hopes that cling to your heart like fragile embers. This is the power of these tales. These digital confessions, whispered into the void, where anonymity becomes the mask for truth, and every viewer becomes the keeper of secrets too heavy to carry alone. And now that secret, that trembling echo of someone else's reality, becomes part of your own shadowed narrative, intertwining with your thoughts, awakening that undeniable curiosity. The insatiable hunger to know what lies beyond. What stories have yet to be told? What mysteries hover just out of reach, waiting for you to uncover them? So, hold on to this feeling. This electric thread of wonder and unease. For it is what connects us all across the vast unseen web of human experience. And if your heart races, if your mind lingers on the what-ifs and the may, then you know the story has done its work. Its magic has woven itself into the fabric of your being. So before you step away from this realm, remember this. Every story you encounter here is a whispered invitation to look deeper, to listen harder, to embrace the darkness and the light alike. And if you found yourself lost, found yourself changed even slightly, then honor this connection by keeping the flame alive. Like this video. If the story haunted you, subscribe to join the fellowship of seekers who chase the unseen truths, and ring the bell to be the first to greet the next confession, the next shadow, the next revelation waiting to rise from the depths. Because here we don't merely tell stories. We summon them, we become vessels for the forgotten, the hidden and the unspoken. And you, dear listener, have become part of this sacred ritual. So until the next tale finds you in the quiet hours, keep your senses sharp, your heart open, and never stop chasing the whispers in the silence. Thanks for watching. Take care. Good luck. Asterisk. After listening to today's story, perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind, or maybe it has brought back some old memories. Every day on Reddit, New experiences and moments create fresh stories, and they connect all of us. Everyone has their own unique journey in life, and we all try to understand the world in our own way. These kinds of moments remind us that we are all human. Sometimes happy, sometimes sad, and always learning something new. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it with your friends. Your thoughts and feedback are always valuable to us as they motivate us to create even better content. Every story has its own unique angle, and our goal is to understand everyone's perspective and make our content diverse and relatable. Stories like these help us realize that life's journey is different for everyone, and by hearing other stories, we learn something new. You can also share your own stories with us. Your experiences are valuable to us as well. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave your feedback. We aim to create content that brightens your mind and gives you new ideas every time. If you've already seen this video before, your feedback is still important. With every piece of feedback, we can improve our content and bring a new perspective to our viewers. Today, what we saw was just a small part of the many stories shared on Reddit and across the world. It's a reminder of how we all try to understand life by sharing our experiences with each other. This video was only an example of how we try to connect with others through storytelling, learning about different sides of life. We hope to continue sharing such stories that help us all learn and grow together. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon. If you haven't already, please like and follow for more amazing content. Your support keeps us going, and we will strive to bring you more thought-provoking and heartwarming stories. Until next time, take care and stay curious. **